The private jet sat on the runway at Murtala Muhammad International Airport, engines humming, ready to take Philip back to New York, back to his empire, back to his life. But he couldn't move. In his trembling hand was a passport, not his own, Stephanie's. The woman he loved more than his own breath had left it on his nightstand with a handwritten note that contained just 4 words. "Let me go, Philip." 48 hours earlier, he had everything. Now, standing in that luxury cabin, he had to choose between the woman who saved his soul and the promise he'd made to someone he could never betray. This is the story of how a man with everything lost it all in Lagos and discovered what love really costs. But before we continue, if you enjoy deep emotional stories that stay with you long after they end, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Now, let's go back to where it all began. Philip Armstrong didn't need to come to Lagos. At 42, he'd built Armstrong Technologies from his college dorm room into a $15 billion empire. Forbes called him the Golden Touch. Business Insider labeled him the most successful entrepreneur under 50. But none of them knew about the pills he took to sleep. None of them saw him staring at his ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if this was all there was. His therapist said it was burnout. His ex-wife said it was karma. Philip didn't know what it was, but he knew he was drowning in a life that looked perfect from the outside. When his business partner, Chike, a Nigerian man he'd met at a tech conference, invited him to Lagos for a reset, Philip almost said no. Africa wasn't on his radar, but something in Chike's voice made him pause. "Brother, you need to remember what it feels like to be alive," Chike had said. "Come, just 2 weeks, no business, just life." So Philip came. He landed in Lagos on a humid Tuesday evening in March. The chaos of the city hit him immediately. The traffic, the noise, the energy. Everything moved differently here, faster and slower at the same time, more raw, more real. Chike took him to a restaurant in Victoria Island that first night. Not a fancy place, just good food and live music. That's where he saw her, Stephanie. She wasn't performing. She was just sitting at the bar, laughing with the bartender, her head thrown back in pure joy. Her laughter cut through the noise of the restaurant like light through darkness. Philip couldn't look away. She wore a simple yellow dress, no makeup that he could see. Her hair was natural, pulled back. She wasn't trying to be noticed. But Philip noticed. "That's Stephanie," Chike said, following his gaze. "She's a teacher, good woman, heart of gold." "She's beautiful," Philip whispered. Chike smiled. "Yes, but be careful, brother. Lagos women are not like American women. They see through pretense. They see your soul." Philip didn't understand what that meant. Not yet.
Stephanie Okafor had learned not to trust smooth men and expensive watches. At 34, she'd built a life she was proud of. She taught literature at a secondary school in Surulere, lived in a small flat with her younger sister, and volunteered at a children's home on weekends. Her life wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. It was hers. She'd noticed the Americans staring at her from across the restaurant. She always noticed when men stared. Usually she ignored them. But something about this one was different. He looked lost. When he approached her 20 minutes later, she almost laughed at how nervous he was. This man, in his designer shirt and Italian shoes, was fumbling over his words like a schoolboy. "I'm Philip," he said, extending his hand. I know this is forward, but I saw you laughing and I hoped, could I buy you a drink?" Stephanie studied him for a long moment. She saw the expensive clothes, yes, but she also saw the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "You look like a man running from something," she said quietly. Philip froze. No one had ever said that to him before. Not so directly, not so truthfully. "Maybe I am," he admitted. Stephanie made a decision that would change both their lives. "One drink," she said, "but I choose what we talk about. No business, no money, no bragging. Just truth. Can you do that?" Philip sat down, and for the first time in years, he told someone the truth. They talked until the restaurant closed. Then they walked along the beach in Lekki, shoes in hand, waves touching their feet. Philip told her about the emptiness, the success that felt like failure, the awards that felt like prison sentences. Stephanie listened without judgment, and when he finally ran out of words, she said something that cracked him open. "You've spent your whole life trying to prove you're enough, Philip, but you'll never feel enough until you accept that being human is all you need to be." He looked at her, this woman he'd just met, and felt something he hadn't felt in a decade. Hope. The 2 weeks became 3, then 4. Philip kept extending his stay, making excuses to his team back in New York. Market research, he told them, new opportunities in Africa. But the truth was simpler and more terrifying. He was falling in love. Stephanie showed him a Lagos he never would have seen on his own. They ate suya from street vendors. They got stuck in traffic on 3rd Mainland Bridge and laughed about it. She took him to her school, and he watched her teach, saw how her students' faces lit up when she explained Shakespeare. "You give them hope," he told her afterwards. "No, I give them tools. They create their own hope." Everything with Stephanie was like that, deeper than surface level. She challenged him. She didn't care about his money. When he tried to impress her with expensive restaurants, she'd shake her head and take him to her favorite buka instead. This is real life, Philip. Not everything meaningful is expensive. He fell deeper every day. But Stephanie was holding back. He could feel it. One evening, sitting on her small balcony, watching the Lagos sunset paint the sky orange and purple, he finally asked her, "Why won't you let me all the way in?" Stephanie was quiet for a long time. "Because you're going to leave," she finally said. "Men like you always leave. You'll go back to your real life, and this will become a nice memory, a story you tell at dinner parties. That time I fell for a girl in Africa." "That's not fair." "It's not about fair, Philip. It's about truth. Your life is in New York. My life is here. This has an expiration date. We both know it." Philip grabbed her hand. "What if it doesn't? What if I stayed?" Stephanie looked at him with eyes that had seen too much disappointment to believe easily. "Don't make promises you can't keep," she whispered. "It's cruel." But Philip meant it. In that moment, he meant it with everything in him.
The call came at 2 a.m. on a Thursday. Philip's phone lit up the darkness of his hotel room. New York number. His assistant. "Mr. Armstrong, you need to come home. It's Sarah." Sarah. His daughter. His 15-year-old daughter from his first marriage. What happened? His heart was already racing. "She's in the hospital. She tried to hurt herself, sir. Your ex-wife found her in time, but the doctors say she's been struggling. She's been asking for you." The world stopped spinning. Philip had a daughter. He'd never told Stephanie about Sarah, not because he was hiding her, but because talking about Sarah meant talking about his greatest failure, the marriage that collapsed, the custody battle, the way work had consumed him while his daughter grew up. Sarah lived in Connecticut with her mother. Philip saw her twice a month if he was lucky. She'd been pulling away from him for the past year, barely responding to his texts, finding excuses not to visit. He thought she just needed space. He thought she was being a typical teenager. He was wrong. "I'm on my way," Philip said, his voice shaking. He threw clothes into a suitcase at 3 a.m., called for his jet to be ready, started to leave a note for Stephanie. They'd planned to meet for breakfast. Then he stopped. He couldn't leave without seeing her, without telling her. He drove to her flat as the sun was rising, knocked on her door. Stephanie opened it in her nightgown, confused. "Philip, what's wrong?" And then he told her everything, about Sarah, about the failed marriage, about the daughter who was in a hospital bed, asking for a father who chose work over her time and time again. "I have to go," he said, tears streaming down his face. "I have to go right now." Stephanie held him as he broke, this powerful man crumbling in her doorway. "Then go," she said softly. "Go be the father she needs." "I'll come back," Philip promised. 2 weeks, maybe 3, just until she's stable. Then I'll come back and we'll figure this out. We'll figure us out. Stephanie smiled, but her eyes were sad. "Just go, Philip. Your daughter needs you. That's what matters." He kissed her, held her, then left. He didn't see the tears that fell down her face after she closed the door. She knew he wouldn't come back.
Sarah was pale and small in that hospital bed. Philip's heart shattered when he saw her. When had his little girl become so fragile? When had the weight of the world landed on her shoulders? "Dad," she whispered when she saw him. He held her hand and didn't let go for hours. The doctors explained depression, anxiety, the pressure of being Philip Armstrong's daughter. The therapist explained abandonment issues, feeling invisible, crying out for attention in the most desperate way. "She needs stability," the therapist said. "She needs to know she's your priority, not your company, not your deals, her." Philip moved into the guest room at his ex-wife's house, took a leave of absence from work, drove Sarah to therapy 3 times a week, sat with her during the bad days, celebrated the small victories on the good days. Every night, he texted Stephanie, told her about Sarah's progress, told her he missed her, told her he'd be back soon. Stephanie's responses got shorter, more distant. Then, after 3 months, they stopped altogether. Philip tried calling. His calls went to voicemail. He sent emails, no response. He messaged Chike, begging for information. Chike's response was simple. "She told me to tell you she understands. She said you're where you need to be. Let her go, brother." But Philip couldn't let her go. One evening after Sarah had gone to bed, his ex-wife, Jennifer, sat down across from him. "You've been different these past months," she said. "Present, actually here. What changed?" Philip thought about lying, then decided he was tired of lies. "I fell in love in Lagos," he said quietly. Jennifer was silent for a moment. Then, "Does she know about Sarah?" "She knows everything. I told her before I left." "And she let you go?" "She told me to go, to be the father Sarah needed." Jennifer's eyes softened. "She sounds like a good woman." "The best." "Then why do you look so miserable?" Philip looked at his hands. "Because Sarah still needs me, because I can't keep failing her. But every day I'm here, I'm losing Stephanie, and I don't know how to be in both places at once." Jennifer reached across and squeezed his hand. "Philip, you were never good at half measures. You're all in or you're all out. Sarah needs all in right now. Maybe this woman in Lagos deserves someone who can be all in for her, too." The truth in those words cut him deeper than anything. 6 months after Philip left Lagos, Sarah was doing better. Not perfect. Healing isn't linear, but better. She was back in school, smiling again. They'd had dinner together 4 nights that week, real conversations about her friends, her dreams, her fears. She'd even made a joke about his terrible taste in music. She was coming back to him, but Philip was hollowing out from the inside. He woke up thinking about Stephanie, went to bed thinking about Stephanie, saw her in every sunset, heard her laugh in every moment of joy. He'd built his company back up. The board was happy. The stock price was soaring. His daughter was healing. He had everything he'd almost lost, but he'd never felt emptier. One Saturday morning, found Sarah staring out the window. "You think about her a lot, don't you?" she asked quietly. Philip turned, surprised. "How did you—" "Dad, I'm 15, not blind. You get this look sometimes, like you're somewhere else." Philip didn't know what to say. Sarah sat down next to him. "The woman in Lagos, the one from your texts, is she why you've been different?" Philip nodded slowly. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Do you love her?" "Yes." "Does she love you?" "I think so. I hope so." "Then why aren't you with her?" Philip looked at his daughter, this brave, beautiful girl who'd almost slipped away from him. "Because you needed me. Because I had already failed you once. I couldn't fail you again." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, you didn't fail me. I felt alone, yeah, but that was before. You're here now. You've been here. You chose me." "I'll always choose you, sweetheart." "I know, and that's enough. But Dad," she took his hand, "I don't want to be the reason you lose someone you love. I don't want that weight. Please don't put that on me." Philip's throat tightened. "I'm getting better," Sarah continued. "I have Mom. I have my therapist. I have friends. I have you, and I'll always have you. But you're allowed to have a life too. You're allowed to be happy." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Go get her, Dad, before it's too late."
Philip landed in Lagos on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, 8 months after he'd left. 8 months of silence from Stephanie. 8 months of hoping it wasn't too late. Chike picked him up from the airport, shaking his head. "You're a fool, you know that?" "Probably. Is she—" "She's still teaching, still at the same school. But Philip, brother, she's moved on. You need to prepare yourself." "Moved on? She's seeing someone?" Chike hesitated. "Just prepare yourself." Philip went straight to her school, waited outside like a stalker until classes ended, watched students pour out, laughing, alive. Then he saw her. Stephanie. Still beautiful, still radiant. But something was different. She was pregnant. Very pregnant. Philip's world tilted. He grabbed the wall to steady himself. She was with a man, tall, kind-faced, his hand protective on her back. The man said something and Stephanie laughed. That same laugh that had cut through Philip's darkness all those months ago. But it wasn't for him anymore. Philip watched them get into a car and drive away. He stood on that street corner as the rain soaked through his clothes, as the sun set over Lagos, as his heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. He'd lost her. He'd waited too long, and he'd lost her. Philip spent 3 days in his hotel room, not eating, not sleeping, just grieving. On the 4th day, Chike forced his way in. "Get up, shower, we're going to talk to her." "Chike, she's pregnant. She's with someone. I can't." "Chike, you flew 5,000 miles. You're going to see this through. Get up." An hour later, they were parked outside Stephanie's flat. Chike went up first, came back down. "She'll see you. 10 minutes. That's all she's giving you." Philip climbed those stairs with lead in his chest. Stephanie opened the door, and for a moment, time stopped. They just looked at each other. "Hello, Philip," she said softly. "You're pregnant." It was all he could think to say. "Yes." "The man I saw you with." "My brother-in-law, my sister's husband. They were taking me to a doctor's appointment." Philip's heart lurched. "You're not with someone?" "No, I'm doing this alone." Hope and confusion crashed through him. "Stephanie, I don't understand. Who's—" She stepped aside, let him in. Her flat was the same, small, cozy, real. She sat down heavily. Pregnancy made everything harder. "Do you want the truth, Philip?" Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. "The whole truth? Please." Stephanie looked at him with eyes that held oceans of pain and strength. "The baby is yours." The world stopped. "That last night before you left, before your daughter's call, we were together, and I got pregnant. I found out 2 weeks after you went back to New York." Philip couldn't breathe. "Why didn't you tell me?" because you had a daughter in crisis, because you were rebuilding your relationship with her. What was I supposed to do, Philip? Call you and say, hey, your child needs you, but also, surprise, you're going to have another child with a woman you barely know from another continent? I had a right to know. And Sarah had a right to a father who was fully present. Stephanie's voice rose. Not distracted, not torn, not trying to manage two lives at once. She was hurting, Philip, really hurting. I wasn't going to be the reason you couldn't give her everything. Tears streamed down her face. So I let you go. I stopped responding to your messages because every time I did, I wanted to tell you. And I couldn't. I couldn't be selfish when a child's life was at stake. Philip knelt from in front of her, taking her hands. Stephanie, I'm not telling you this to trap you, she said firmly, or to make you feel obligated. I'm telling you because you're here and you deserve to know. But Philip, I'm not going to ask you to choose. I'm not going to make you pick between your daughter and this baby. I won't do that to Sarah. I won't do that to you. What are you saying? Stephanie pulled her hands away gently. I'm saying I release you. I'll raise this child. I have family. I have support. You can be involved as much or as little as you want, but I'm not going to be the person who tears your family apart. I won't be that woman. Philip stared at her, this incredible, selfless, impossible woman. What if I want to be here? What if I want both? Philip, you can't be in two places at once. What if I could?
That night, Philip didn't sleep. He called Sarah, told her everything. There was a long silence on the other end. Dad, she finally said, are you asking my permission? No, yes, I don't know. Sarah, I'm terrified of hurting you again, of choosing wrong. Dad, listen to me. You have another child coming. That's huge. That's a person, my sibling. Her voice was steady, mature beyond her years. You didn't abandon me to go to Nigeria. You were there when I needed you most. You proved yourself. You can't put your life on hold forever because you're afraid. But nothing. Figure it out. Split your time. We have video calls. We have planes. It's not 1950. Dad, you can have both of us. You just have to be brave enough to try. After he hung up, Philip sat in the darkness for hours. Then he made a decision. The next morning, Philip showed up at Stephanie's door with Chike and a lawyer. Stephanie opened the door, confused. Philip, what? I'm not asking you to choose, Philip said, and I'm not choosing. I'm building a bridge. He handed her a folder. Inside were documents, papers, plans. I'm moving Armstrong Technologies' African headquarters to Lagos, he said. We're expanding. It makes business sense anyway, but more than that, it lets me be here. 3 weeks a month, I'll be here. 1 week a month, I'll be in New York with Sarah. She's good with it. We talked, really talked. Stephanie stared at him. Philip, you can't upend your entire life. I'm not upending it. I'm expanding it. Stephanie, you told me once that I spent my whole life trying to prove I was enough. Well, I don't want to prove anything anymore. I just want to be present. For Sarah, for our child, for you, if you'll let me. He dropped to one knee. I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet. I know we need time. I know trust has to be rebuilt, but I'm asking you to let me try. Let me show up. Let me be the man you deserve, the father our child deserves. Stephanie's hands covered her mouth, tears streaming. You don't have to decide now, Philip continued. Take all the time you need, but I'm here. I'm staying, and I'm all in. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's one more thing, Ms. Okafor. He handed her another document. Mr. Armstrong is establishing a trust for the child, but more than that, he's setting up a foundation in your name for education, for the children's home you volunteer at, for the schools that need resources. He says you taught him that real wealth is what you give away. Stephanie looked at Philip through her tears. Why, she whispered, why all of this? Philip stood,
cupping her face gently. "Because you saw me when I was lost. Because you loved me when I was broken. Because you sacrificed your own happiness for my daughter's healing. Because you're carrying my child and never asked for anything. Because," his voice broke, "because love isn't about choosing between people. It's about expanding your heart until there's room for everyone." Stephanie sobbed, and Philip held her as she cried out months of pain and fear and hope. The small flat in Cerule was gone now, replaced by a comfortable house in Lekki, where Philip's laughter mixed with a toddler's giggles every morning. Their son, David, had his mother's eyes and his father's stubborn determination. He was learning to walk, stumbling and getting up over and over again. Sarah visited during her school breaks, and watching her with her baby brother made Philip's heart full in ways he'd never imagined. She told him once during her last visit, "You know what the coolest thing is, Dad? You didn't choose. You just expanded. You made room for all of us." Armstrong Technology's Lagos office was thriving. Philip split his time exactly as he'd promised. 3 weeks in Nigeria, 1 week in Connecticut. It wasn't perfect. Some days were exhausting. Some days he missed someone no matter where he was. But he was present, really present. And Stephanie? They'd married quietly 6 months after David was born. No fanfare, just a small ceremony with family, friends, and a promise to keep building bridges instead of walls. On their first anniversary, Stephanie told him something that made everything make sense. "You know what I realized?" she said, as they watched the Lagos sunset from their balcony, David asleep in Philip's arms. "That night we met, I saw you running from something. But you weren't running from your life. You were running towards it. You just didn't know where to run." Philip kissed her forehead. "And you showed me." "No," Stephanie smiled. "I just held up a mirror. You did the rest." But here's what Philip never told Stephanie, what he never told anyone. That last night before he left Lagos the first time, before Sarah's call, before everything changed, Stephanie had whispered something to him in the darkness. "If I told you I loved you, would you stay? Or would the truth scare you away?" And Philip, terrified and overwhelmed, had pretended to be asleep. He'd heard her. He'd felt her heart breaking, and he'd said nothing. It was only years later, watching his son play with his daughter, watching Stephanie teach David his colors, that Philip understood the real miracle. Stephanie had loved him even when he'd been too afraid to love himself. She'd carried his child even when he'd been silent. She'd let him go so he could become the man worth keeping. She'd saved him twice, once by letting him leave, and once by letting him return. That was the real story, not about a billionaire who found love in Lagos, but about a woman who had so much love she gave it away freely, and somehow, impossibly, it multiplied and came back even stronger. And Philip? He spent the rest of his life trying to love as courageously as Stephanie had loved him. Some love stories are about finding each other. This one was about finding yourself worthy of being found.